So I say town planning is creating great places for people, and great places for people has to include the elements that the arts brings to us. The murals, the plays, the music, any of those things that remind us as locals about the place we live in, or that remind us as visitors about where we are and gives us some visual clues about how to connect in with where you are.
We are here to celebrate Jute's 30th birthday, and so many people make Jute, Jute. They make it the incredible theatre company that it is, including town planners. So, interesting question. How does a town planner get involved with theatre? Let's find out. Let me introduce you to Nikki Huddy, who is a very well-known town planner around town in Cairns. Hi, Nikki.
Good morning.
Firstly, just paint us a picture. What exactly does a town planner do?
It's a secret, isn't it? I think we all have an idea about where we live. Everyone lives in a town, yet we don't know what town planners do. And I think even my mum, after all these years, doesn't know what town planners do. So I say, quite simply, we make great places for people. And you do that through open space, making sure there's libraries and schools, that there's enough of the housing areas and enough places for shops, and that along the way we preserve the natural environment. And an important part of the place where we live has to be the culture. It's a triple bottom line, isn't it? It's one of the three pillars of a sustainable environment or a sustainable place. It's the economics, it's the environment, and it's the culture. So of course the arts forms basically 1/3 of a pillar of a successful community.
So how did you get involved with Jute?
Well, I was working with a small community that was having a problem with kids misbehaving, and I feel that, that dis-ease, that acting out, and that anger that you can have in where you live comes from when you feel like your place doesn't reflect who you are, or that the government and others in power don't recognise you or see you, and ultimately your place doesn't reflect back to you the things that you value or help you connect with where you are. So I say town planning is creating great places for people, and great places for people has to include the elements that the arts brings to us. The murals, the plays, the music, any of those things that remind us as locals about the place we live in, or that remind us as visitors about where we are and gives us some visual clues about how to connect in with where you are. You think about the fish at the lagoon. That is the most publicly photographed piece of art in Australia, and it's instantly recognisable. We feel a sense of pride because we're from here, and then when you come, you're excited because you're connecting with it. And plays, they do that for us too, the theatre. And Jute has, through particularly the Dare to Dream program that I work with, has the ability to tailor something specifically to a community, and then gives you the opportunity to participate in it in an active way, and then you can provide that play to your community.
Well, let's talk a bit more about, you mentioned a community was grappling with some children misbehaving, and what some of these kids were doing was throwing rocks at cars, which obviously is a very dangerous thing to do. So how did that community saying, hey, we need to deal with this, turn into an incredible piece of theatre?
The easy bit really was to connect. So there's the throwing of rocks at cars. The workplace health and safety response is to shut down the department that was affected by the rock throwing, which was the emergency department at the hospital. And that was a really big call to arms for the community. And so there was police, the schools, the council, the healthcare workers, a really wide range of people started to scratch their heads about what can we do here? This is getting beyond our ability to manage it. So there was a galvanising of leadership at the time that a road safety grant came out. And the story really is that there was only a tiny bit of money available and nowhere near enough to write a tailored piece of theatre and then run it through a road show. So we actually went out and found 5 or 6 other councils or schools that wanted to participate in the program, which was just brilliant in itself. And everyone that I rang said, oh yes, we've got a problem. We've got kids walking on train lines with headphones in their ears and I'm worried that they will get hit by a train. Oh, we've got kids that don't wear helmets. We've got kids that, ride in back of utes. There's that whole range of road safety challenges. So it wasn't as hard as I'd expected to get people involved because really road safety as the topic here in regional areas is very hard to tailor. You can't pick it up from Brisbane and you really need to make it something that's local and reflects back to the people where they live and who they are.
Well, let's talk a bit about the actual show that culminated with all these different groups and councils coming together saying, hey, we really need to do something about this. The Dare to Dream Back on Track. Tell me about the show that resulted this two-hander.
Well, that play, the best part of that story for me is when I saw the play in its final rehearsal and was floored. And yet everyone in the room was like, well, no, this is business as usual for us. And I'm like, yes, you do consistently deliver really amazing pieces of work and you can sometimes lose just how magnificent they are, how you can create a real sense of urgency to do different through a play. Those plays any of the plays that I've seen through Jute, I've walked away feeling like I should be doing better for my community, or having a long hard look at myself as a community member, or even with the play we just saw with David Hudson, just an immense sense of pride about the people in your place that you don't always know those hidden backstories to. Yep. So to really be fair to the Back on Track play, all credit must go to Isaac, the playwright. He really found a very clever way to connect behaviour on bicycles and motorbikes to young people. There's nothing else to say in a way. Obviously there's some brilliant acting. There's a very solid piece of teacher user manuals or guidelines that came out of that as well, so that teachers can continue to do it. But the calibre of that play is just incredible.
With such an important message. So you've got 2 great actors playing a whole range of characters, nailing this message of wear your helmet, wear your seatbelt. It's gone to lots of schools in the region. What's been the response from young people seeing this show?
When you say across the region, it's everywhere from, say, Herberton to Pomperau, places with 10 kids in the grade to 100 kids in the school. And you see kids who at the start of the week have that sense of shame and uncertainty about participating, realising that you can let yourself be when you're doing art and when you're doing plays, and that you can actually see those little kids with that anxiety at the start burst into the confident people that are always there, and you find yourself not getting in trouble because this is the bit where you get to actually act out in the best possible ways.
So it's had a really positive impact, you'd say, on young people's attitudes to these sorts of issues. Do you think they're really thinking about them?
Yes, I do think that message. When I was in preschool, 4 years old, Hector the cat came to my school. Do you remember Hector the cat?
I think I do.
He had a really great message to stop at the curb, look to the left, look to the right, look to the left again.
Yep.
I know how important those messages are. I can remember that all these years later. I remember nearly every play that's ever come to school, the one in grade 2 about I Can Jump Puddles, the one in grade 4 about the big swim, the one in grade 9. These are the things that have probably had the most impact on me in my own schooling. And I do not have particularly creative bones in my body, but that's where the most memorable learning is from nearly every year in my schooling. There's something absolutely magical about the way that plays allow you to participate even while you're just observing. And so you're part of the learning and the change.
Well, it's not only the young people who've, taken this message on and love the show that they've seen at their school or in their community. It's also attracted some big awards, Nikki, and quite a bit more funding. So tell us about that.
Yes, the play itself has received 2 Planning Institute of Australia awards, one for Queensland for creating great places, and then it took out the national award as well for community engagement and taking the message. I guess you're taking the message of road safety to the community rather than belting them over the heads with the wear a seatbelt and the big 5. So two awards through the Planning Institute, and also we're very hopeful of, we're finalists in an award through the Road Safety Council of Australia, which will be towards August this year. So it has been a really well-received play, and at the National Awards, the question that I was asked by the national president was, well, when will we see a play about town planning? And I was like, well, actually, this is a play about town planning. Yeah. And Jute put on To Kill a Cassowary, which from my perspective was also a play about town planning. Yeah. It was a challenge around environment and how we look after where people live as well as where animals like cassowaries live. So again, it depends on what kind of approach you take as an audience, but you can get any message you want out of it should you look at it that way. So I think a lot of people are quite jealous that we've been able to have this relationship with Jute to develop this play. And then, yes, that play has actually, again, been I guess it was so enthusiastically received by the audience themselves and with people such as myself that there was a really easy way to say, if you can continue to fund us here, we can actually take this wider and wider and wider. We can start to get some real evidence around how it is that behaviour does change. You can't figure that out after 1 year. You do need 3 to 5 years. So yeah, the investment from the Queensland government in particular towards that play has allowed expanded relationships with the likes of the PCYC, or the regional councils and regional schools, just to name a few, but there are so many groups who have a road safety message that can connect in on the back of this.
Can you imagine having been able to do this with any other theatre company apart from Jute?
Well, I would love to. I have had a really big think about that, and one of the biggest aspects of working with Jute is that there aren't very many regional theatre groups in Australia. So it's not something that you could replicate everywhere because very few places have their own theatre group, and again, particularly outside of capital cities. This working with Jute is something that, Jute is a gem. We know that, and it's 30 years in one place that really has built up a local reputation and a national reputation for what it delivers. And when you say it's a one of a kind, it turns out it actually is.
Nikki, great to speak with you.
My pleasure.
And congratulations on being part of what is a really important piece of theatre.
One of the best parts of my job, I think, is multidisciplinary opportunities. The more diverse the inputs, the better the outputs, and this play speaks for that.
Thank you.
Thank you.